indeed. Douglas, the latest politically?
Yeah, we have more. I mean, we keep talking about the context. French presidential election, 3 days away. Final countdown here. I was saying earlier, François Fillon has canceled his own planned event that was planned for Friday in the French Alps. Well, now we're hearing that François Fillon has actually gone beyond that. He is calling for all campaigning events, presumably among all candidates, to be suspended, to be canceled tomorrow in the wake of this attack. So really broadening this out as sort of a timeout for presidential politics.
This is being treated as a terror attack, given the way the investigation's been opened. We now see, via the wire service here coming into us, a claim from the Amaq news agency, which is the propaganda site of the Islamic State group, that the Islamic State group is indeed claiming the Paris shooting. So I suppose that's about as official as an Islamic State group claim gets, and we're bringing it to you as it happens. And a kind of sad inevitability of the whole affair that this should be coming out this way, Doug.
Yeah, if this is borne out to be a genuine claim, we've seen claims in the past where you're trying to figure out, is it really a claim, or are they just trying to sort of get some cheap capital off of a terror incident? But we've been often with these types of claims, it's taken 24, 48 hours or even longer before we have it. So this is, relatively speaking, given the past precedent in the recent months and past couple of years, that is relatively quick for a claim of responsibility from the Islamic State group to come down. Once again, as you said, it is from their own so-called in-house news agency, heavily in quotes there.
I think it's a propaganda agency, isn't it? I mean, it's called a news agency is kind of disparaging our job, isn't it?
Much better word.
Indeed. It's one of those things. So the Amaq agency, which is the informational propaganda branch of the Islamic State group, has issued a statement to say that the Islamic State group is claiming the Paris attack. It all ties in with the fact that we're seeing here from sources close to the anti-terrorist inquiry that the assailant was apparently subject of an inquiry. That's what we're seeing now coming out. Another piece of information coming to us here at France 24 that this could have been the situation. And Doug, this man, of course, known to the security services.
This man's known to the security services. It's interesting because with all of these, going back to some of the bigger attacks, Brussels a couple of years ago, the Paris attacks, there had been talk that these were the work of networks. They had been in the planning for a while, and there was actually a big trial hearings opening today in the past couple of days here in Paris under very heavy security of one such network that was of suspects presumably believed to have been involved in the planning stages of one or more attacks. So once again, these fiche S, you don't get that designation lightly. You have a reason to be on that radar usually. If they're tracking you with the limited resources, I mean, they do have a lot of officers, but it's still limited resources. If they make that decision and they're going to be following you and track you, there's usually a pretty good reason for it. So this does come at a time when the security forces, the intelligence agencies, they've been trying to do the yeoman's work here, essentially, of trying to piece together these very disparate but apparently wide-ranging networks that operate at different times, different places, but often very loosely connected, sometimes more tightly connected. It is extremely difficult intelligence work, and but it will be interesting to see, is there connections among all of these various players here.
When we heard earlier François Hollande speaking at the Elysees Palace, he was praising the job being done by the security services, talking of their tremendous work and how they have his and the country's full support, and that is right. But these things always raise questions as to how people get through the gap, and I know that the security services have to be lucky all the time to stop everything. And the assailants, the terrorists, need to be lucky just once to get through and create something that we are suddenly talking about wall to wall.
This is it. You can make the counter argument. You mentioned earlier we don't really know all of the attacks that were thwarted, perhaps due to good intelligence. They nabbed them in times. Yes, we do hear about the big ticket attacks where it was a major attack, imminent attack, such as the one we were talking about in Marseille, that apparent thwarted imminent attack. We do hear about that, but there are any number of dozens of more, perhaps lesser incidents in the planning stages that are thwarted. if you're to believe, and there's no reason not to, the Interior Ministry's own figures and their own reports. So it's almost an impossible task, given the magnitude and given, like what you said, we've seen recently more and more so-called soft targets. Remember, they're not charging into heavily armed ministries such as the Defense Ministry. They're not charging into the Elysees Palace, the French presidential palace. They're taking public areas. The Champs-Elysees, it's iconic, but it's also a large public open space.
Soft target, one that makes the headlines, massive headlines.
You can't probably get a combination, short of perhaps the Eiffel Tower and the Champ de Mars in front of it, of both the iconic symbolic target plus publicly accessible target with that density of pedestrian foot traffic every day of tens of thousands of people at almost any given time, any given hour of day and evening walking down that boulevard.
Indeed, and once again, though, it is the forces of law and order under attack. Just to remind people who may have just joined us and may be searching for answers on this night of tragedy in the centre of Paris. On the Champs-Elysees, 9 o'clock, Paris time, a incident where a car drew up alongside a police vehicle. The driver got out with a gun and shot one police officer, killing him, and wounded two others. A passerby was also wounded in this incident. The assailant was then gunned down by police at the scene. François Hollande has spoken of his deep sadness about what has happened. He has issued a message of security for the French people, saying that you will be protected. And of course the planning and the meetings continue to hatch together the response to what now has been claimed as an attack by the Islamic State group. A message issued by their Amaq propaganda arm just a few moments ago to say that they claim the shooting here in Paris. The scene, you can see, the Champs-Elysees still on lockdown, where everyone has been told to either go back to their homes or go back to their hotels. This, of course, the epicenter of French, or rather Paris, tourist land. So many people there. We've heard from a restaurateur who had to keep people inside his restaurant. People scared, worried about what was happening, fearing that the worst might be going to happen to Paris yet again. What we've seen is bad. Paris, of course, has seen worse.
I was just going to, add there, Mark, in the wake, as you know very well, in the wake of the November 2015 Paris attacks, there was quite a steep dive in tourism to Paris. A lot of people were staying away from the capital for a while, seeing it, whether rightly or wrongly, as a dangerous place to visit, despite all of the reinforced security. And only lately, really, in the past few months, have French officials and been talking about the fact that people have been returning to Paris. The tourist numbers have been up. The visitors to the capital, it's springtime in Paris, literally right now. And if you walk the streets, you do notice they have come in numbers. So, and then when these things happen, you do have to start asking, are we going to go back into that cycle again? Just when people were coming back to Paris.
I was thinking myself today, what a beautiful day it is, and how nice it would be to, bring family members over to visit this wonderful city and enjoy springtime Paris, which is absolutely lovely. But here we have it now, sort of an attack which, again, makes people think whether it is the right place to be, whether it's safe, and whether it's worth visiting Paris, given the current situation. Doug, thanks for the moment. Dipti, thank you for the moment. Let's bring in now